Welcome to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. We are proud members of the Activist Post Podcast Network, so you can check out all of our audio archives at activistpost.com. We are also a proud member of the Liberty Radio Network, so that's at lrn.fm, where you can check us out weekly, not just online streaming, but also on dozens of terrestrial radio stations and satellite as well. So big shout out to Liberty Radio Network. Glad to be a part of that family. Well, it is Monday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and we are coming to you absolutely live. Man, we got a great show for you today. I'm very, very excited. Our guest today in the second hour is Mance Rayder, who has a brand new book called The Kids Are Not All Right. It's his second book. This dude is one of the best Liberty meme curators out there, and also runs a fantastic podcast called Free Man Beyond the Wall. It's something that you should all be checking out. It's he burst onto the scene, and one of the smartest guys in the room for sure. So I'm looking forward to seeing him. But like I say, we've got a lot to talk about today. It's been a very interesting week. Mance agreed to stick around just in case we go additional time. Maybe today will be longer than a 2-hour show, but hey, you know what? I know the guys in charge, so I think we might be able to pull that off. Speaking of guys in charge, since we do have so much to get through today, I'm going to need some help. And to help me, as always, my good friend, co-host, and producer, Mr. Christian Ray's. Christian!
Good morning, Vin.
Good morning, sir. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm fantastic. We've got so much today, dude. I have been this week. This week, I didn't know what to add into the show, and like as recently as this morning, waking up, new topics were being added. I think it's really interesting the way that this show has evolved over time. So when we began the show, even from the very first episode, if people go back and watch the very first episode, I had said specifically that there were three technologies that I thought were going to be of premier importance in the path of liberty. And this was, so we started our show in fall of 2016. And I said, so here are the three technologies. One, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency as a whole, for
Hmm.
sure. I said aquaponics, which by that I really meant small scale, high yield agriculture, and mesh networks. And so it's kind of almost in that order. Kind of in that
Right.
order almost, because I did have a very interesting experience yesterday. As people know, I made the move to New Hampshire from Las Vegas. You're there in
Hmm.
Vegas. I'm here in
Yep.
New Hampshire. And I made the move, and I've been here for 2 months. And yesterday was my first time attending what is very normal within sort of the Free State movement, which is a private, basically like a private farmers market, a private market, an
Oh,
agorist
that's cool.
market, right? And everybody there accepted crypto. So it's funny because there was a tweet about, oh, well, we need like a killer app. And it's like, no, money is the killer app. What we need
Yeah.
now, and what I've said for a long time is, we need those products that are valuable, but that you cannot get except with crypto.
Yeah.
And certainly in the world of agorism, that's the case. So what, man, what did I get? I bought art. I bought, I bought lunch and cider there.
Nice.
Eggs. I actually got, there's local farms here that do these almost like co-op, like farm share situations.
Yeah.
So I actually got 20 weeks worth of fresh chickens delivered.
Wow.
I got beef, straight local organic grass fed from a farm like just mere minutes away from me,
Uh-huh.
supporting local people. All of them took cryptocurrency. And the question that they asked was, well, which one do you want to use? I take them all. I'll take any crypto, right? But
That's awesome.
everybody there was using Dash. This is what I've been trying to explain to people, right? So I got rid of all the Dash that I had. And because, I don't really convert. If stuff comes in for buying my book or my course or whatever it is, I don't really convert it because
Yeah.
I know that I can particularly Dash now. I know that I can spend Dash. There's no reason for me to shapeshift it. I might shapeshift Monero or something like that, or put it up Zcash. I'll put it up on an exchange, whatever. But Bitcoin Cash, I definitely keep. Dash, I definitely keep. So basically got rid of all my Dash. Uh, spent some more Bitcoin Cash. Fantastic. To me, I look at it and I'm like, okay, well, there's your product. There's your
Yeah.
product. Like
Yeah.
it because it enables that agorism. It enables us to step forward and have these. It's a freedom market. It's like, look, I trust you, you trust me. I'm going to see you next month. Why do we really need to have the state involved?
Hmm.
Do we really need to have the state involved if we're on a first name basis? And wouldn't you like to be on a first name basis with the person who grows your food?
So simple, dude. I love it.
It's so easy, right? And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense, but then there's the state, right? So it's like really for us to take private, to take back this word private, and to take back the power of this word private. This is huge. So it's like
Yeah.
Bitcoin, what's one of its main features? One of its main features is privacy. So it's like not that decentralization is an end in and of itself, not that privacy is an end in and of itself. It's that if you have privacy, then it's a means to do this. And one of the things that it's a means to do is it's a means to be able to quickly and efficiently transact with people who you know who are doing business within a community and build a community with some economic power. Because look, that's economic power.
Yeah.
If you've
Yeah.
got a community of people who can feed themselves and that the farmer, not off, it's not a commune. It's not a commune. It ain't no collectivist, nothing like that. No, this is pure, straight up capitalism that ends up getting you all the things that the lefty socialists want so bad. They're organic, grass fed, or even vegan,
Hmm.
right? Because or even you want to grow your own garden. There was a guy there who was selling. Then this is what I thought was so cool because New Hampshire has such a short growing season. So what he does is he sells like not seedlings, but like a little bit bigger of plants that are like ready for you to plant and that'll be flowering in like 2 days. As opposed to you
That's
going
cool,
and doing
dude.
seeds and all of that. No, total
Oh,
capitalist. He's like, look, there's a demand here. Yeah, we're still on our thing. There's a
thanks.
demand for me to just be I'll do most of the hard growing for you, and then you
Uh-huh.
could just put it in the ground but still be able to tend an almost full garden. It's like the IKEA of gardening.
That's cool, dude.
How
That's
smart is
cool.
that, right? He's not
I
selling the
love it.
food, he's not selling the produce, he's selling the
Hmm.
plants. And because he's doing it with crypto, like if you walked into this market, in the backyard of it's in the backyard of a private home. Invite only
You
on
know
a closed
what's
Facebook
in
group. It's like if you walked into this market, you don't see a cash register. There's no money
Mhm.
being exchanged. If people don't pull out their phones, you don't know that there's any commerce taking place. That's what crypto can allow.
Right.
That's why it can build communities and build liberty. And the thing is, I just did it yesterday. And people are making their living doing this.
It's
It's
amazing, dude.
happening now.
It's amazing. You know what? You know what's interesting? I had a conversation with a friend of mine, a good friend, old friend of mine, a couple days ago, and I seen him post a bunch of inter Facebook posts talking about crypto, but in a very negative way.
Mm,
And so I asked him. I said, "What, what are you learning about crypto? What's going on?" Like I seen a couple of your Facebook posts and stuff like that, and I realized that after the conversation, it was by the end of the conversation, he wanted to get more into crypto, get
right.
started with it and stuff like that, invest his, start with $100 to go and earn it and spend it and start to use it and stuff like that. But what I realized was this. I had to go back about 2 or 3 steps with him first
Mm-hmm.
to the basics, to kind of like what you're talking about now, like just basic stuff. You know, this is what crypto is designed to do, not necessarily a investment platform or anything like that, But I asked him like even got into like freedom and philosophies underneath freedom, kind of what we talked about on the show last week. Like, do you believe in slavery? Is this something that you agree with? No.
Hmm.
Okay, let's start here. You know,
Right.
what do you think? What is slavery? You know, and we started going working through these ideas, but what I'm getting at is we had to go back to the basic principles of owning your property and exchanging it with other people without having
Hmm.
a third party involved. And then from there, we could start branching out and start learning a little bit more about the technology and what it can do and things of that nature. But I just had to go back to the basic, the roots of this thing, you know?
So I think that that is a great jumping off point for because that's been going through my head this really this whole week. And it's
Hmm.
why the topic today is we're talking about blockchain wars. Well, it's Memorial Day, right? Today is Memorial Day.
Yeah.
And, Memorial Day, the idea of the holiday is to go back and to honor the fallen from wars. So basically to
Hmm.
honor the casualties of war and to remember them. And days that do this are not new. These go back into antiquity. And drawing back into antiquity, I put up a tweet, but it's a quote that a lot of people know. The Greek dramatist Aeschylus, he's got a famous quote that is, "In war, truth is the first casualty."
That's, dude.
Mm. And
Yeah.
what's interesting is that this technology, because this is so, so, so very important, especially for those people who fancy themselves libertarians, principled anarchists, etc. The reason why I'm a voluntarist, the reason why I want a stateless society, is because the state is an instrument of violence.
Hmm.
And violence does not solve the really hard problems. Like, violence will enable you to steal from people who are already productive, but violence itself is not productive. And the more people that are making their living through theft and through violence, the less total people are doing anything productive, right? So those people are
Right.
essentially, they're parasites. They're
Hmm.
not growing and expanding and helping to grow things. And so as a voluntarist, you're like, okay, let's get the violence out of the system.
Hmm.
It's not about who built the roads and, all of that. No, it's very, very simple. It's not about who will build the roads. It's can we build the roads without violence?
Hmm.
If the answer is yes, then we should pick that option. This is a preference, but it's also a very smart preference because if you
Hmm.
look, there is a correlation between financial prosperity, human happiness, and the existence of violence in your neighborhood. If you go to the places in the world where the people are the least free, the most poor, and the least happy, you will also find that those correlate with the places where there is the most violence. It is not a coincidence. So, what is the big thing that the blockchain changes? What is the big thing that Bitcoin brings to the table?
Hmm.
Bitcoin takes the violence out of a society that's
Oh
based
man.
on Bitcoin. Why is that? If I've got a bunch of gold and that's the money that I'm using, violence is a very good way of getting my gold. If I have a Federal Reserve and a printing press that can print money, and whoever's in control of that printing press and that central bank is in control of all of the finances of everyone, violence is a very good tool for getting rich. You can't attack Bitcoin with violence, with swords, with guns, with bombs, and
Hmm.
expect that at the end you're going to get a private key. It's not going to happen. This is the revolution. But, but, that is not, I mean, this is the idea of my book. It's that violence is a means of the book Self-Ownership. Violence is a means of conflict resolution. And in these cases, I'm showing
Hmm.
you've got something I want, you want it, I want it. Who's going to get it? Violence. Violence can solve that. If you're dead, there's no one else making the claim, it's mine. That's pretty good. Even non human animals do that. No problem. But here we have a situation where that is just an invalid strategy. That strategy is just not going to work.
Hmm.
But that doesn't mean that conflict is not going to exist. It doesn't eliminate the conflict, it eliminates the violence. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, we're seeing that a
What
lot.
does that mean? If truth is the first casualty in war, maybe we should start to take a look at what is truth. What is truth? And what will wars look like in the future? And I tell you what, it's going to be all memetic.
Hmm.
People don't realize right now we're in the midst of it. We're in the midst of these conflicts. Right now it's very small, right? And people don't see. Most of the people involved in this scene are like they don't have the opportunity like I do because they don't live in New Hampshire. They don't have the opportunity yet to see what how
To
this
see.
unfolds in
Mhm.
the real world. That's where you get the real light bulbs. To them, it's like, oh no, what is this about? It's about me throwing up an anonymous avatar and going and trolling somebody. And here's the thing, yes, it actually is about that also.
Hmm.
But in the future, that is going to affect whether people eat or not.
Well, and think about that too. That's kind of what we're seeing right now with corporations.
Mm-hmm. Go on.
Corporations are anonymous avatars. Well, in a sense, because you can't put with some corporations, you can put a bigger corporation, you can put a face behind it. But you think of Facebook as Facebook, not
Sure.
necessarily Mark Zuckerberg.
Mm-hmm.
And what they do is they go and they troll and they get certain things moving. It's memetic warfare, in other words.
It's memetic warfare. So let's talk about memetic warfare. So since we know that it's out there, we know that it's existing. What I want to say to everybody out there who's in this space, who's in this blockchain space right now, we are building the new nations. We are building the new communities that already on a microcosm and a small scale in certain places, like for me, I am now able to eat the highest quality food available, organic, locally grown. These things that are, here we go, I got you, Christian. These things
Cool.
that are the things that you pay top dollar for at Whole Foods, I'm actually able to get those things at an extreme discount. Less
Hmm.
money than I would pay for crap at the grocery store because of crypto, because of taking the theft, the violent theft out of the system, and because of the enabling of voluntary interactions. This is huge. This is coming for everybody. And we're making this happen. You're fighting a war right now. You really are. You really are fighting a war for the future. Most importantly, whether you know it or not. So before we get into all of this, dude, because God, there's so much to talk about. So much
Yeah.
interesting stuff happened this week. Uh, Bitcoin Cash meetup, Vegas meetup, your meetup. Go
Yeah,
ahead and
so
tell
the
people.
Bitcoin Cash meetup is coming June 7th from 7 to 9 p.m. at Las Vegas Distillery. And this Bitcoin Cash meetup, we're going to go over some of the things that are new, like the update and a couple other things. We touched on that a little bit on the Bitcoin Cash meetup last time, but now that it is done, we're going to touch on that again. The last Bitcoin Cash meetup was awesome. We had a kind of like a mastermind going. There was some very passionate people in the room, and we were discussing different ideas and different things that we can do with this, and also talking about how we're going to implement here in Vegas and get local businesses to adopt Bitcoin Cash, which I love.
Hmm.
And it was just a great time. George from the distillery was awesome. We had some pretzels and some food, and it was just a lot of fun, along with learning a lot of cool stuff and being passionate about what's coming with this revolution.
Awesome, dude. And yet, this is an opportunity to go and Can you come back to us? You got it?
Yep.
Yeah, this is an opportunity for people to go to Las Vegas Distillery, which accepts cryptocurrency. You can
Hmm.
go and purchase, bottles of some of honestly the best liquor in
Yeah.
America from a craft distiller who is truly a master at this point, including you can go and buy baby vodka straight from the distiller. That's where it's distilled. George has some bottles there, and he's been authorized to go ahead and make those sales. And we will engrave them for you and either send them off to you or you can pick them up. So that's an opportunity for you to do that there. That's awesome, Christian. Let's dig into this, dude. We've got a lot to get to. As you said, in order to explain something, sometimes you got to go to the beginning. And it's so true. We talk all the time about in order to articulate, you have to embody it first.
Hmm.
Embody and then articulate. So I think maybe we should start this out in terms of what I want to get into are some strategies
Awesome.
to bring people's mind to where to how we should be thinking about these memetic battles, to bring up sort of where we are, maybe what mistakes we're making, what things we are and are not noticing, what things we should think of as being important. I think I'm particularly well geared for this because I've got such a strong background professionally in persuasion and seduction,
Hmm.
and it's something that I've studied and I've written about. And if people want to go and read Tao of the Gigolo, there's a lot of you can get it on Amazon. My first book from 2011. There's a lot of interesting information about what I've learned about the way that people's minds operate, and it's all about memetics, and it's all about
Hmm.
memetic warfare, and it's all about moving yourself at least up a hierarchy of choices for another person, and that's really where we're at. Like we can't fight with fists or with guns or with bombs between, for instance, Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin. It's not going to happen. Even the few attacks that can be leveled in the real world, at the end of the day, are still memetic attacks. And we're going to talk
Hmm.
about why that is. But let's go to the beginning, because in terms of conflicts between chains and conflicts over really a persuasive angle, a very important memetic persuasive angle, there was something that happened in Taipei, in Taiwan. The sound on this is not fantastic because it was just captured with a camera phone. I don't know if this is going to, it was being filmed clearly, but I don't know if it's going to be released. Jack Liao, who was the sort of creator or founder of Bitcoin Gold, which we have a story about, they got it 51% attacked, and we've got a story about that in a minute, had a bit of a showdown that almost went to physical with Craig Wright. And it was about, now a lot of people put this up, and I mean, we're going to talk about the memetic meaning of all of it, but there was something in here that was of more importance to me for the future of moving forward. Some things that were said outside of the conflict that I think a lot of people actually missed. I want to talk about that, but first let's go ahead and show this again for the people who are listening. Uh, I tried to clean the audio up as best as I could. I'm going to go over and tell you the things that were said, but just to set this up, somebody has asked, it's a panel. Craig Wright and Jimmy Nguyen are sitting next to each other, the two guys from Enchain. Jack Lau is two people down. Somebody had asked Jack a question, I believe, something about who is Satoshi? How could somebody prove they were Satoshi? This same individual sort of says something to Craig about, don't you think that if you're going to claim to be Satoshi, you should prove to be Satoshi? Craig answers, and we'll just see. This whole thing devolves pretty quickly. So it's about 2 minutes. Let's go ahead.
And said that I am who I am claiming. So, reasonably, I should present some.
As do I really care. But,
At Enchain Group, we don't think it matters anymore whether people believe anyone in the world is Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto is a concept and a myth that birthed Bitcoin to the world. And while there may be many people in the world who believe Dr. Wright is, we don't think it's important to the future of Bitcoin, and we're here to focus on the future of Bitcoin Cash in particular. And we are happy to have people believe what they want to believe or not.
the only thing that's important in Bitcoin is the future. Not what came before, what is coming and what is being developed. And we're about to release a whole lot of technology and other things. And nothing there should matter about who someone was. Proof of authority is not what Bitcoin's about.
Right. And can I continue?
Okay, let me finish first question. 我用中文哈。对于谁是中本聪，其实我们业界有一个非常公平的一个标准，就是比特币创建于数学之上，我们相信数学。谁是中本聪用一个标准去建立啊？你有没有私钥？
Jack Lau answering in
当你没有
Chinese.
私钥的时候，我们人人都是中本聪，因为我今天我可以在宣布
So
说
what is this in
我也是中本
English,
聪。
or do I walk out of the
我也是
conference?
Craig
Shut up.
interrupting, saying he
Be
should
polite.
speak Chinese, and then
So,
Craig standing
no,
up
you shut up.
to get in his face and tell him to shut up.
Well, you want to do this without English.
When you say here's Taiwan, everybody speaks Chinese.
I got invited here.
Me
You
too.
want to?
Me too.
I don't really
So
care.
be polite, sit down.
No, you're
When
not
you
being
talk, I
polite.
never interrupt you. Why you talking you interrupt me?
You did actually.
Me tonight, okay?
You did. Excuse me. Who wants me or him at this conference? Or me and my technology ever in this country, or not?
This is a really bullshit. It's like it's a shame for the whole Greek currency.
So here's the question: which one do you want to have answer?
Well, take a look at it.
No, that's all right. Thank you.
No, well, then who goes? One of us goes. One of us goes. Which one do you choose?
Why should you choose here? Here's the
So
democracy
you never get
country.
my interviews again.
Goodbye. Fact Toshi.
Okay, so let's get outside of the sort of explosive part of this and the thing that people like let's get outside of like the world star, right? Like let's get outside of the low level of this thing. Because really what was important in this to me is there was something that was so telling, and it's really about memetics, it's about game theory. What happened in this clip, for me now, I 100% believe Craig Wright is not Satoshi Nakamoto. And I'm going to explain to you why. And it's a little game theory thing, and it's just a little behavioral economics situation. I'll break it down. The most important part of this, and I want to read it again because it was hard to hear. I transcribed it. Craig kind of gets into this argument about, before that you can't see, about, well, this is all about privacy, and I don't have to share anything with you if I don't want to. Jimmy then sort of taps him on his leg, trying to be diplomatic, trying to be the CEO of a corporation that he is. Very, very intelligent move on his part, and then also very intelligent to diffuse the situation and to basically pull Craig out. Jimmy should thank God that Craig should thank God that he's got Jimmy around, because Jimmy is he's a very politically savvy dude. Okay, so let's get into this. What did Jimmy say? Jimmy said, "At N-Chain Group, we don't think it matters anymore whether people believe anyone in the world is Satoshi Nakamoto. Satoshi Nakamoto is a concept and a myth that birthed Bitcoin to the world, and while there may be many people in the world who believe that Dr. Wright is, we don't think it's important to the future of Bitcoin, and we're here to focus on the future of Bitcoin Cash, and we are happy to have people believe what they want to believe or not." And then Craig says, "The only thing that's important to Bitcoin is the future, not what came before, what is coming, and what is being developed." What that says to me, that's a corporate message. So this has been, at least on Jimmy's part, this has been practiced, and clearly they've talked about that this is going to be what the message is. All right, this is an important message. The important part is, we don't think it matters anymore whether people believe anyone in the world is Satoshi Nakamoto. So let's talk about what I mean by the game theory and why this convinced me that Craig Wright is absolutely 100% not Satoshi Nakamoto. Here's what convinced me. It's basically a Nash equilibrium in game theory. Many people have seen it as like the 4 quadrants. That's the typical. It could be 20, 100, but it's about strategies of behavior. Right? And Nash equilibria, when you know that a game has Nash equilibria, which basically means that there's some situations that would always be your best choice to pick if you're against somebody. People can go and look this up. Nash equilibrium. Prisoner's dilemma is the most well-known one. What's interesting is that what people who really have studied this would say is the true innovation of Bitcoin, Nakamoto consensus, is actually solving a game theory problem, which is called the Byzantine generals problem. Which the Byzantine generals problem, just briefly, in a nutshell, is the idea that there's an ancient walled city. You have these Byzantine generals, the Byzantine, the Eastern Roman Empire, right? All of these generals are surrounding a city. Now, if all of the generals attack at one time, or all retreat at one time, they will win the battle, every single one of them. The problem is, at least some of the generals and the messengers and lieutenants are traitors. If even one of these generals doesn't attack at exactly the same time, guaranteed to lose. What is the strategy for making sure that you can win this? Very interesting. You go into Bitcoin, it's basically proof of work, and Nakamoto consensus is in many ways a fix for that problem. So very interesting. So that's the first thing, is that whoever invented Bitcoin is a master of game theory. Whoever invented Bitcoin, so let's start there, right? Satoshi Nakamoto knows game theory. He solved one of the most difficult problems in the whole field of game theory, solved it so well that that alone, just solving it, has caused a revolution that is shaking the world to its core. Okay. So let's talk about the game theory of who is Satoshi Nakamoto. All right? There's basically four. You get a total of 4 quadrants because there are 2 things with 2 states. First, you either are Satoshi Nakamoto or you are not Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay? Self-evident. Independent of that, you either want people to believe that you are Satoshi Nakamoto, or you want people to believe that you are not Satoshi Nakamoto. Now, so that means you either are Satoshi Nakamoto and you want people to believe that you are Satoshi Nakamoto and you want people not to believe that you are not Satoshi Nakamoto, are not Satoshi Nakamoto and you want people to believe that you are not Satoshi Nakamoto, or are not Satoshi Nakamoto and you want people to believe that you are Satoshi Nakamoto. Okay. 3 of these quadrants are relatively easy. Okay? You are Satoshi Nakamoto and you want people to believe that you are Satoshi Nakamoto. How do you behave? What do you do? Go ahead.
You prove it.
You prove it. Easy, right? I said 3 of these are super easy. Don't think it's a trick question, okay? Second one. You are Satoshi Nakamoto, but you want people to believe that you are not Satoshi Nakamoto. What do?
You stay anonymous and you hide and you...
And if somebody asks you, are you Satoshi Nakamoto? What is your answer?
No.
That's an easy quadrant, right? Now, you are not Satoshi Nakamoto, and you want people to believe that you are not Satoshi Nakamoto. What do?
You just say that you're not Satoshi Nakamoto.
Easy. I told you, 3 of these are super easy. Now, you are not Satoshi Nakamoto, but you want people to believe that you are Satoshi Nakamoto. So here's the thing. If you are Satoshi Nakamoto, one of the things about that is you can prove that you're Satoshi Nakamoto. If you're not Satoshi Nakamoto, you can't prove that you're Satoshi Nakamoto. So, last quadrant. If you are not Satoshi Nakamoto, but you want people to believe that you are Satoshi Nakamoto, what do you do? And actually, hold on. Let me back this up and let's make it not be Satoshi Nakamoto. Let's do a different situation that I think everybody understands because it's even cliche, right? Especially for men. Especially for young men. And the situation is either you slept with that chick or you didn't sleep with that chick. You want people to believe you slept with her or you want people to believe you didn't, right? So now, and we all have either been the one in the situation or have been in a conversation with somebody in the situation. If the guy didn't sleep with the chick, so can't prove that he did, or if she was confronted, she would say he didn't, if he didn't sleep with the chick, but he wants people to believe that he did, and someone asks him, hey man, did you sleep with her? What does he say?
He would say he hung out with her, or he spent some time with her, or I can't tell you,
Aha!
or
That's it. A gentleman never tells.
hmm
A gentleman never tells. If he did sleep with her, but he wanted you to believe that he did not sleep with her, he would not say, a gentleman never tells. He would
right.
say, I did not have sexual relations with that
Right.
woman, Monica Lewinsky. That's, he wouldn't do. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So if
yeah,
somebody
totally.
says, at Enchain Group, we don't think it matters anymore whether people believe anyone in the world is Satoshi Nakamoto. That is the strategy of the last quadrant. You are not, but you want people to believe that you are. That
hmm
is the only quadrant in which that strategy is an effective strategy. It's to Enchain's great advantage that people believe, that at least some people believe, without them having to prove that Craig Wright is Satoshi Nakamoto. It adds
Absolutely.
a great amount of value. So, what I'm going to say about this is that's my own personal opinion and my own analysis of the game theory involved here. I
hmm
could be wrong. Let me say that. And perhaps they're playing 4D chess. Perhaps it's what they
Right.
call reverse psychology. That's always
Mhm.
possible too. I'm just saying my own experience as a persuader professionally. But more important, I think even more important, is the statement itself. Because the statement itself, the statement itself is not really, it shows a lack of awareness about the power of the meme. Because
Mhm.
it is important. And it does matter whether Satoshi Nakamoto was a real person or whether Satoshi Nakamoto was simply a myth. As much as it matters whether Jesus Christ was a real person or whether
Right.
Jesus Christ is just a fantasy story. That really, really matters. The other thing about it is Satoshi Nakamoto was a real person.
hmm
Bitcoin exists. The Bitcoin white paper was written. There are emails. There are forums. It does matter whether or not he was a real person, and the answer to it is he is a real person.
Yeah, without a doubt.
He was a real human being who had certain beliefs and certain knowledge and certain understanding, and that's very, very, very important. Very important. And it's important. It'll get us into our first story. Go ahead and go to news story number 1. So, the reason why it is important that Satoshi Nakamoto was a real person and was existing in the real world is because every chain that moves away from Satoshi's vision, if we are not addressing Satoshi's vision, every time a chain moves away, something new is formed. And the question that we have to be asking, and I think it's the question that is at the core of the BTC Bitcoin Cash debate. It's also why I don't just discount Dash. Because Satoshi's vision was a peer to peer electronic cash system. Cash. Cash. Like I used at the farmer's market this weekend. Cash. That is Satoshi's vision. When people move away from that vision, if we are not going to say that Satoshi Nakamoto was a real person with real vision, we hand over control of the narrative and give them a memetic weapon. For them to say, no one could possibly know what Satoshi wanted because Satoshi is a myth. That's not true. That's not true. He wrote enough, and it's worth studying, and we're going to have Derek McGill of, I believe it's Satoshi Institute. They've forked away. There's been a couple of different groups that there's groups out there that are keeping archives of all of Satoshi's communications to try to understand what was his vision. Because if you understand his vision, you start to understand the subtleties of what is inside Bitcoin and what makes Bitcoin powerful. Some people forked away. Some people say it's meant to be digital gold, so they forked away into Bitcoin Gold. And interestingly enough, that was Jack Liao who got into that little row with Craig Wright in Taipei. And just the week before, his chain had been attacked by a very large 51% attack. Why don't you throw up this BTG story? This is from ZDNet. Bitcoin Gold suffers double spend attacks, $17.5 million lost. Bitcoin Gold appears to be the target of a 51% attack, leading to the theft of approximately $17.5 million from cryptocurrency exchanges. Traders of the coin, established in 2017 through a hard fork of the main Bitcoin BTC network, have been tracing the attack since last week. Scrutiny of unusual activity on the network has revealed the scheme in which double spending attacks have been launched against cryptocurrency exchanges trading the virtual currency. According to the Bitcoin Gold team, exchanges rather than individual users have been targeted. The first attack was recorded on 16 May and have now appeared to have ceased. Quote, an unknown party with access to very large amounts of hash power is trying to use 51% attacks to perform double spend attacks to steal money from exchanges, the team says. We have been advising all exchanges to increase confirmations and carefully review large deposits. There is no risk to typical users or to existing funds being held. 51% attacks force reorganization in the blockchain. While not the result of a security flaw or vulnerabilities, the attack can theoretically be launched against any blockchain. If a threat actor manages to wrestle control of over 50% of a network's computing power, they are able to both modify and exclude transactions of their own coins from blocks. Attackers are then able to double spend, in which transactions are reversed after being confirmed, as well as prevent all other miners on a network from mining valid blocks. Launching these types of attacks can be expensive, and due to the vast computing power required, the only way they are made profitable is to attempt large double spend transactions, and this in turn pivots attacks toward cryptocurrency exchanges. The wallet address connected to the 51% scheme has received 388,201 BTG, which is worth approximately $17.5 million at the time of writing. Okay, Christian, jump on back to us, because it's very, this brings up a perfect, since we're talking about memes, something that's important to know. You know, the meme about decentralization, decentralization, is that it prevents a 51% attack. And the primary thing that a 51% attack allows an attacker to do, the primary thing, is to do this, a double spend. Now, what does a double, you want to attack an exchange. What is a double spend? What does that essentially mean? Very simply, one of the main features of Bitcoin, one of the main properties of a cryptocurrency that makes it so wonderful, and especially one like BCH or like Dash that has zero conf, is once the transaction is in the blockchain, it's guaranteed. But with zero conf, it's virtually guaranteed that once it's in even the mempool. Okay. But what does a 51% attack allow you to do? 51% attack allows you to go in and rewrite the blockchain. So it basically is that instead of it being at your address, if I have 51% of the hash power, I can rewrite the blockchain essentially and move it so that it's no longer at your address. I can give it back to an address I own. Now, does that affect anyone except you? No. No. I didn't rewrite any of the rest of the blockchain in that case. Okay? It doesn't affect anyone but you. Does it affect the overall network? No. The total number of transactions and the total number of UTXOs on the blockchain are the same. What is the attack really about? When they talk about security, that it's a security risk, what are they talking about? It's a threat to memetic security. It's a memetic attack. Why? Liquidity is of ultra importance in terms of adoption. The biggest question that people have, and even we're taking on some investment, some venture capital investment with Cointext, people who are sort of fresh in this space, but who are capitalists, who like know a lot about finance, who know a lot about business, who know a lot about money, but are kind of fresh into really grasping what every piece of the technology that's in the space does, the most common question that they have is, how do I go from fiat to crypto?
Right.
How do you solve that problem? Now, that's not our value proposition at Cointext, and I have to communicate that to them. That is the value proposition of an exchange. Specifically, I tell them, that's what exchanges do. We are not an exchange for a lot of reasons, mainly regulatory.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most heavily regulated part of the industry. It's got the most risk. It also has the most
Sure.
reward. Also has the most reward, right? Coinbase is doing very, very well. Let's put it like that, right? And they're an exchange. The worst thing that can happen in terms of adoption is for exchanges to delist you. For you to be removed from an exchange takes all the liquidity out of your currency. It takes away the ability for people who are dealing in that currency to know that they can very quickly move between either other cryptocurrencies or back to fiat.
Right.
The best thing that can happen to your cryptocurrency is that you are on the largest exchanges that go back to fiat, like Coinbase.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why it should be no surprise that the highest market cap and the most volume is coming from, except in the case of Ripple, which just makes no sense at all, Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, and Litecoin, which are on Coinbase. And why it's such a big deal when a large merchant services provider adds a cryptocurrency. But if they feel like there's a threat that there could be 51% attacks, they're not going to add it because they're just not going to take on the risk. That's what a 51% attack is doing. It's It's a memetic attack against the reputation. The reputation. Which takes us to the core of what this is all about. It's all about reputation. What is the reputation of your network? What do people think about your network? What is the reputation? This is what we have to manage. Brings me to another interesting thing that happened, which we talked about. It's an interesting outcropping, and I want to just deal with it. Let's see. We're gonna go over because I've got. We'll maybe, if Mance is watching right now, Mance, if you're watching, let's say additional 20 minutes after the top of the hour, and then we'll come on with you because there's some things to talk about. These are important things. We're gonna bring him on. I mean, this dude is fighting the meme wars every day. So he's really, I'm glad that all this is happening now and that we had him scheduled because there's no one better. He's really going to round this out, but I want to give the background, right? And I think I would be remiss in not addressing some of the things that have happened within our own community and what we can do concretely to make sure that we're winning the battle. Let's talk about a battle won, okay? I think it's very important.
Mm-hmm.
Let's call it the Battle of the Boat. Let's call it the Battle of the Boat because I think that it is, let me get you back on here. I think that it is a prime example of a memetic battle, how you win a memetic battle, and then how you make sure that that victory doesn't turn around into a loss by preventing a counterattack, right? Because you never really know if you've won the battle until you've left the battlefield alive. You never know until you've left the battlefield alive. And in some cases, some battles are lost if you stick around on the battlefield. Because reinforcements, you got to win quick and get out before the reinforcements get there. That's very important. Very important.
It's happening with Donald Trump right now.
Right, and you definitely don't want to leave yourself open to an attack from your flank while you're winning to a sneak. Many a battle has been lost that way. Many a battle has been like, you make what's a strategic retreat from the guys in the front, which brings maybe the cavalry out, and then you bring a flanking attack and you kill all the archers, whatever it is. This is warfare.
That's when you fall the hardest too, and that's actually
that's how you get massacred. That's how massacres occur.
Yeah, and that's the problem with the victor mind state.
Yes.
Because when you lose, you go back down to the victim.
So for the people who are we've got a lot of new listeners. Can you explain what you mean there in terms of the victor mind state and the other mind states?
Right. So there's basically three steps in the consciousness scale. These steps can be broken down into micro steps too, but there's three main steps. One, the first is the victim. The victim is the effect of everything. The second is the victor. The victor is the cause of everything, but it only goes to a certain extent because you know as a victor you're going to be the effect of something at some point. The third is going to be the vehicle, and that's the balance of the victor and the victim, but knowing that those two things have to exist.
So what we're
So,
trying to be here is we're trying to be the vehicle, and I think that that's why we curate the show in the way that we do. We're trying to be a vehicle for knowledge. People know we don't have any ulterior motives in this. We're very open about what our motives is. We want a more free world. We
yeah.
live it every day. There's no question. Like, I moved halfway across, not halfway, completely across the continent to do it in real life. Would love to bring people to that because it's a much nicer place to be. So let's talk about a victory, right? But a not yet fully won victory, not yet exited completely from the battlefield, knowing that there's victory. Let's call it the Battle of the Boat. We covered it last week, talked about it. The fact that a picture was taken from the CoinGeek conference of a bunch of people who were invited by Calvin Ayre. Most of them, almost all of them attendees at the CoinGeek conference. Most of them either presenters or members of the organization staff as a nice celebration and a thank you. It was also his birthday. It was incredibly hot that day. I mean, incredibly hot. Before we even left the dock, Roger and I were sitting on the back of the boat. Roger Veer and I were sitting on the back of the boat having a conversation, and he was drenched in sweat. I was drenched
Oh
in
shit.
it was bad, right? So on this boat, as they take this picture, they took the picture when we had basically arrived at this little, kind of like a little inlet that there was where a
Hmm.
lot of boats were parked. It kind of reminded me of like a Havasu or Lake Mead. A lot of boats were parked. People were swimming, jet skiing. So everybody was getting ready to go and start swimming, jet skiing, and they were like, "Wait, everybody get together, take a picture before we eat," and all of this. So we took a picture, and there were some girls in bikinis. And one of the girls who was there with Craig Wright, I think in one of the pictures he was actually like holding her up,
Yes.
was Reina Nakamoto, who is a very, very vocal evangelist of Bitcoin Cash. And she was there, obviously, and she has been a very positive voice for Bitcoin Cash, very thoughtful individual. A
Hmm.
free thinker herself, you know what I mean, is always willing to get in there and mix it up, and I respect that a lot. She happened to be there in a bikini. Fine. There were guys in bathing suits as well. I personally, having been in a world where I have to manage my reputation, I was like, there will definitely be pictures taken. Calvin has already had criticism leveled against him because he goes on boats with women in bikinis. Uh, and so I'm just going to wear chinos and a shirt. I'll be comfortable and I'll spend
Hmm.
time inside. I don't need to be I don't need for me to give more ammunition because Vin Armani gigolo.
Right.
They've got a gigolo on the bus on the boat and blah blah blah. No, I'm going to. It's okay if you take a picture. I am there as Vin Armani, CTO of Cointext, which is what I also am.
Hmm.
So basically, the trolls came out, and this is great. Memetic ammunition. Let's hurt the reputation of the people involved here. And the idea was there's too many bikinis, not enough beards. I'm sure none of these people
Right.
can even code, right? That's an attack, a memetic attack on the reputation of the chain. These people are a joke. They're just partiers. We're the serious coders, which is absolutely not true because I was in that picture. I'm a serious coder. Standing next to
Hmm.
me there were people who are very serious coders. We had very serious conversations, even on that boat. But it's just so the idea was the counterattack. So that's the attack, right? The counterattack is actually no, no. We are the chain of the adoption for the people. We are the chain for the people. And most people are not neckbeards in a dark recluse hiding away, coding in between Slurpees and video games. We are people who want to spread joy and happiness, and we don't mind. We don't think there's anything wrong with a woman in a bikini. We don't think there's anything wrong with a woman who, to be smart and beautiful, and to be able to express her sexuality, and that there's no creepiness. We're such adults that there wasn't even any creepiness, which was just recently backed up with, so Krista Rose actually reached out, and yesterday he had Reina Nakamoto on his show to talk about it.
Nice.
That's their counterattack, right? So very good attack on the BCH side, and that battle was won. The battle of the boat was won right there. Krista Rose, meaning to or not, counterattacked. Counterattacked. Why? Well, Krista Rose is has built his reputation as the chief male feminist of the BTC side.
Mm-hmm.
And he even said on the show, and he has said many times with no qualms, no, my allegiance is to BTC. So he brought Reina on, and this is where the potential loss started to take place. And I just want to nip it in the bud. I just want to give a message. She came on in a bikini.
Oh shit.
Now, there is a sense that you want to own it, right? There is a sense that one of the best ways to combat trolling is to own it.
Yeah.
But what's important with the owning it is that you own it because it was appropriate in that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll give you an example. So, trolls will comment on my Twitter profile, which is they will be like, oh, because I'm in the desert, it's very sort of a glamour shot, got the bare chest, whatever, and they'll be like, oh, look at you, really doing the same thing, but see, it's a troll trap. Because anybody who follows me knows I don't take selfies. Not really, unless somebody was like, I took a selfie in Hong Kong, because somebody was like, yo, you really need to take a picture, at least one, to show appreciation. I like to take a selfie when I'm at a conference. Like if you go to my Instagram feed, you're going to see that if somebody invites me somewhere, I'll take a selfie and say, thank you so much. And then it gets, 700-800 likes on Instagram, and fantastic, okay? But otherwise, I don't do that. I don't do it on a daily basis. So if you see a picture of me that looks particularly good, that was someone else taking it on their own accord. So this is a troll trap. So like they want to try to impugn my skills as a coder or my knowledge about the blockchain or cryptocurrency by saying, look at that picture. And my immediate response to them is, do you know how much I was paid to take that picture? That is a press photo from Gigolos, the hit TV show on Showtime. Which for those people, by the way, interestingly enough, I found out this week, there's a movie out, new Charlize Theron movie called Tully. Supposedly it's very good, critically acclaimed, written by Diablo Cody, who's an Academy Award winner, as is Charlize Theron, Academy Oscar winner.
Mm-hmm.
In the early scenes of the movie, my agent just told me this, I haven't seen the movie. Early scenes of the movie, her character is a huge fan of Gigolos.
Shit.
Flips it on, and there I am on the screen, me.
Oh shit.
Charlize Theron's character, specifically as written in by Academy Award winning director Diablo Cody, happens to be a fan of that picture.
That's awesome.
It's not what you think, dumbass. That's the counterattack. It's a troll trap. It's a troll trap.
I might lose connection here.
Oh, okay. So,
you know what? I just thought
I got you.
too.
I got your back. So, but here's the deal.
Mm-hmm.
She went on in a bikini, and that was starting to go down the wrong path. Because the idea is, the message is not, we love bikinis. The message is, it's totally okay to be in a bikini on a boat where other people are swimming and doing this, that we are socially aware. I'm not altogether sure that a bikini is the appropriate attire to go on Krista Rose's show.
Right.
If you want to be taken seriously, just saying. I have no problem taking you seriously if you're in a bikini in a place where a bikini is what most people would consider to be appropriate attire, and where other people are wearing men and women, are wearing swimming attire. But if somebody came on this show in swimming attire, even to talk about themselves being in swimming attire, be like, eh. And then, waking up this morning, and I'm not trying to I'm not saying anything negative about her, but what I'm saying is, it's exactly what I talked about the last time. This is totally natural, by the way. It's a totally natural, and believe me, Chris knows this. And I don't know if this is his little backhanded, he's a very smart guy. He knows a lot of these
smart,
things
dude.
too. And sometimes you're getting drawn out. Sometimes they look like they're retreating, but it's not. It's a strategic retreat to draw you out so that your flank can be attacked. Because this morning, I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to say something?
It's interesting because this concept is actually in pickup. It's a AMOG.
Absolute. This is why I'm saying I'm particularly when I see it happen, I know what the hell is going on because I do it. I'm a master of this shit.
That's crazy.
So but it also goes to what I was talking about last week about your identity. And how Craig had taken on the identity of the bad guy. And you remember last week I said, don't take on the identity of the bad guy, because there's a feedback loop between you give a little bit, and then the audience says, that's your identity. And then you embrace it even more, and what do you end up with? You end up standing up, trying to chest bump with Jack Liao in an environment where that's completely inappropriate.
No, you took on the character. He took
on
the
the character. And so, the thing is, potentially, Reina Nakamoto may be taking on the character of the bikini girl of Bitcoin Cash. And what I'm going to say is, don't be that character. It's not good for anyone. Don't be that. Because even today, she put up a tweet like, oh, we should, and tagged me in it, which is the only reason why I am mentioning this, is because she tagged me in it. We should have a bikini and Speedos party, like we should be setting up bikini and Speedos parties, and it's like, no. That is leaving your flank open.
Big time.
That is losing the battle that you just won. That is becoming what they said you were, that you won the battle to say that they were ridiculous. Don't do it.
Man, memetic warfare is so interesting.
So, I've got this last little thing, dude, because this came up and it's important. I don't want people to feel like I am not, one thing that I want to say, I am not trying to in any way attack Reina Nakamoto. We are on the same team here. I do believe that she really look, we all have our own self-interest. And attention from the crowd is very, very rewarding. It's the most rewarding thing that a human being can receive is positive attention from masses of people. But having had it, having been on a TV show, and not just any TV show, a TV show that I'm the star of and where the message of the show is, this man has more sexual prowess and is more sexually desirable and is just a better man than any other guy out there. That's the fucking message of the show being said by Showtime. Now, so you walk around, you spend some time walking around in the world, people address you that way, and I tell you what, I can say this for myself, I can say this for a lot of my co-stars, you go to some really dark places. Some very dark places because you think you can do no wrong. That's what you believe. You believe that you can do no wrong. Celebrity changes you, man. I often tell people celebrity's like cocaine. Because you get to talking when you're on Celebrity and you think you sound brilliant because you're getting attention and it feels good. You're not. You're an idiot. Which brings me to the unfortunate slipping of somebody who I believe is a hero, but who is playing out the archetypal, unfortunately, an archetypal. I see Mance Rayder there. Mance, I'm doing this story, and then we'll be with you, dude. So maybe 15 minutes. So this particular individual, someone I've had on the show, a hero of mine, somebody whose work has changed my life, who, I'm thankful that I pulled out of my dark place. And I'm also thankful that I was able to, and this happens with a lot of celebrities. Many of them get into that place and it kills them. I'm glad that I didn't live my life that much in public, and that the particular thing I was known for was something that I practiced in private, unlike somebody like a rock star or a big actor or something like that. I got to, I never had paparazzi around. It was never about that. But I still get recognized around the world. If I'm in an airport, I'm getting stopped. People are asking for pictures. It happens all the time. And so, yeah, you get to a place. I'm glad that I was able to pull out. Family was a big part of that for me. Huge part of that for me. Saved my life. Some people don't have that. Or some people are older. I was young enough that I was like, okay, I can reinvent myself. I'm not so tied to this identity. I'm not super tied to the identity of Vin Armani Gigolo. I knew from the beginning that that was something with an expiration date anyway. What, I'm going to be a 65-year-old gigolo? Seriously. So I was constant, and I've have other interests that I'm obsessed about, like crypto and like coding. But that brings me to somebody who has unfortunately become farce. And the only thing I could think about when this story broke this week was this old story, this old clip from the Chappelle Show, the famous Rick James.
And he's both of them brother doctors, twin brother doctors.
And we stand and looking at him. He's looking right in our eyes as he grinds this mud.
See, I never just did things just to do them. Come on, I mean, what am I gonna do? Just all of a sudden just jump up and grind my feet on somebody's couch like it's something to do? Come on, I got a little more sense than that. Yeah, I remember grinding my feet on Eddie's couch. See, I never just did things just to do them. Come on, I mean, what am I gonna do? Just all of a sudden just jump up and grind my feet on somebody's couch like it's something to do? Come on, I got a little more sense than that. Yeah, I remember grinding my feet on Eddie's couch.
Now, the interesting thing about that story and why it deals with this is that whole thing, one of the funniest things to ever be on TV, the true Hollywood stories, Rick James on Chappelle's Show, Rick James telling the stories of his interactions with Charlie Murphy, is that it's a story about being high on celebrity. And he literally even says in that, cocaine's a hell of a drug. He was high on cocaine and celebrity. And the things that you do, and the fact that even after this, not being able to pull himself out, Rick James died a few weeks after that aired. Just like 3 weeks, I think, after that aired, Rick James died. And so one of my heroes, as you can see if you're watching right there, has unfortunately gotten a little high on celebrity and is becoming a bit of a farce in that same way, as you could see in that wonderful pose right there. Jordan Peterson said something this week that I think I want to address, because it's about not opening yourself up to a memetic attack. I think this may end up being his downfall. They'll never be able to take away his actual work, particularly Maps of Meaning, all of his lectures, his biblical lectures up until this point, one of which I went and attended in Toronto. I'm a giant fan of his brain and his work in that regard, but you could sometimes get lost. You sometimes get lost, and when you get lost, especially if you're a target, if you're not paying attention, you do open yourself up for attack. So Christian, let's show what happened. It was basically this thing on enforced monogamy. Go to this NYT story. Jordan Peterson was asked in the New York Times about this guy, Alec Manassian. He's from Toronto, who had driven through trying to kill people. I'll just read you this little clip, and this was the clip I sort of started talking about it, but it's important to see why understanding liberty and being principled as opposed to preferences, it's principles that will carry you through those moments when you may get caught up on either cocaine or on celebrity. So what he said was this: recently, A young man named this is from the New York Times article. Recently, a young man named Alex Manassian drove through Toronto trying to kill people with his van. 10 were killed, and he has been charged with first-degree murder for their deaths and with attempted murder for 16 people who were injured. Mr. Manassian declared himself to be part of a misogynist group whose members call themselves incels. The term is short for involuntary celibates, though the group has evolved into a male supremacist movement made up of people, some celibate, some not, who believe that women should be treated as sexual objects with few rights. Some believe in forced, quote, sexual redistribution, in which a governing body would intervene in women's lives to force them into sexual relationships. Violent attacks are what happens when men do not have partners, Mr. Peterson says, and society needs to work to make sure those men are married. Quote, this is Peterson. He was angry at God because women were rejecting him, Mr. Peterson says of the Toronto killer. The cure for that is enforced monogamy. That's actually why monogamy emerges. Mr. Peterson does not pause when he says this. Enforced monogamy is to him simply a rational solution. Otherwise, women will all go for the most high status men, he explains, and that couldn't make either gender happy in the end. Half of men fail, he says, meaning that they don't procreate, and no one cares about the men who fail. The author says, I laugh because it is absurd. You're laughing about them, he says, giving me a disappointed look. That's because you're female. So let's go to, a lot of people were asking, Christian, let's go to this enforced thing. Let's move through this kind of fast so we can get Mance. Let's go to Reddit. Let's go to Reddit. So people, I blew up online about this. Like, I was so disappointed in Jordan Peterson for saying this. As a libertarian, as a voluntarist, to say that you're going to enforce sexual behavior on somebody. Enforcing sexual behavior is what we just got out of. There were miscegenation laws. You can't have a sexual relationship with someone who's not of your race. We're just getting marriage equality, for God's sake. Just now. So people were like, well, of course his sycophants, and I am a fan, but certainly I'm going to take him to task for something that he says. He took to Reddit because people were like, no, you don't understand what he's saying. He's not saying that the government would enforce it. He's not saying that. He's saying it's a norm. Well, let's look at his own words. He took to Reddit. He didn't ask me anything. And he said, cultures tilt worldwide toward the normative enforcement of monogamy, partly to ensure long-term care of children by both sexes, partly to moderate the potential for violent characteristics of young men. There is nothing remotely controversial about it. It is a virtual truism among anthropologists and biologically oriented psychologists and has been for hundreds of years. Then he says, this does not mean, 1, that human beings are reliably, that is, deterministically, monogamous, because they're not, although they tend strongly in that direction. Side note, I agree with that. Then he goes on. Number 2, that enforcement means, quote, at the point of a gun, so to speak, which is what those who are purposely and maliciously misinterpreting my comments appear to be suggesting. In parentheses, despite the fact that there is literally no one, with the possible exception of a handful of ISIS terrorists, who would ever or who has ever advocated such a thing. Implicit enforcement through the application of accepted societal norms is far more effective than explicit enforcement. If you disagree, if you disapprove of your married son or daughter's extramarital affairs, which I would say is a normative stance, that's enforced monogamy. The fact that polygamy is illegal is enforced monogamy. Let me read again what he just said, because he just did a Rick James, I'm not grinding my feet into his couch. Okay, yeah, I grinded my feet into his couch. He says, it doesn't mean that enforcement is at the point of a gun, which is what those who are purposely and maliciously misinterpreting my comments appear to be suggesting, despite the fact that there is literally no one, with the possible exception of a handful of ISIS terrorists, who would ever or who has ever advocated such a thing. And then he says, the fact that polygamy is illegal is enforced monogamy. The fact that polygamy is illegal is enforced monogamy at the point of a gun. Because every law is an opinion with a gun. Every law is enforced by state violence. It is a state law. So that people understand, as Jordan Peterson often likes to say, that is technically wrong. His statement that he does not mean that enforcement is at the point of a gun, and it is a fact that literally no one, with the possible exception of a handful of ISIS terrorists, would ever or has ever advocated such a thing, is technically false. It's not just technically false for ISIS, it's technically false right now in the United States of America. Go to Edmunds, Christian, do this Edmunds. United States of America, the Edmunds Act. This is current law in the U.S. It's also called the Anti-Plural Marriage Act of 1882, enacted by the 47th United States Congress. There is a religious overtone. It was enacted to basically try to seize the land of Mormons in Utah who were practicing polygamy, who were practicing multiple marriages. It led to the dissolution of the original church of Latter-day Saints, who was in control of Utah. It was a form of memetic warfare. It's how the U.S. won the war against the people who were living in Utah. One of the most interesting things about this act, not only is it federally illegal, punishable by 5 years in prison, current law, this law is not off the books. It is illegal, federally, to marry two people, punishable by up to 5 years in prison. Not only that, put up this cohabit thing. Here's the third section of that law. Again, this is United States law current right now. Section 3, that if any male person in a territory or other place over which the United States have exclusive jurisdiction hereafter cohabits with more than one woman, he shall be deemed guilty of a misdemeanor, and on conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine of not more than $300 or by imprisonment for not more than 6 months or by both said punishments in the discretion of the court. Let me read it again, that if any male person in a territory or other place over which the United States has exclusive jurisdiction, where is that? That is going to be Washington, D.C., at the current moment, Washington, D.C., Guam, American Samoa, the Virgin Islands, and Puerto Rico. Puerto Rico and Washington, D.C., the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and Guam. If you are a man living there, and you happen to be living with two women, including two female roommates. Now, I went to school in Washington, D.C. I knew lots of men who had roommates who were women, who had more than one woman roommate. Every single one of them was guilty of a federal misdemeanor, and on conviction thereof shall be punished by a fine of not more than $300 or by imprisonment for not more than 6 months or by both said punishments in the discretion of the court. Christian, you can come back to us. Jordan B. Peterson, you are absolutely fucking wrong in this. Mm-hmm. And this is celebrity. We've got light changing on you there, and oh God. I'll have to fix that. Yeah, don't smile. Whatever you do, don't smile. This is, here, let's do this. Let's do this. Christian, you're messing me up. You're messing up my rant. Here, go to straight me. And then I'll
Yeah, I don't know what that was all about.
Look, here's the situation. This is being high on celebrity. Because that's not the answer. That's actually not even Jordan Peterson's answer. Jordan Peterson's answer isn't even enforced monogamy. It's not. It's not. It wasn't even his answer to the exact question on this show. We had him on this show February of 2016. No, 2017. Before he was on Rogan. Before people were writing about him. Before he was posing weirdly in the New York Times. He looks like a different person. He sounds like a different person. And his message is completely different. Christian, play this GBP clip. Then we're going to go to Mance Rayder pretty soon. Play this JBP clip. Ceremony where basically the only thing that I got over and over and over again was go get a file cabinet and file all and get your office in order. And that's what I was getting from, and what was crazy was
it's pretty good that the gods took out time in their busy schedule to tell you to get your filing cabinet in order.
Well, what was crazy was that when it brings that to mind that I was like, okay, had it just come to me, I probably wouldn't have done it. But since it was in a ceremony and I knew, I was like, okay, this is profound. When I did that, so many things in my life just seemed to, the energy in my house changed, everything. My mood changed, everything. So what I'm wondering is, these sort of goblins, these goblins of chaos, or I mean, are those the snakes of chaos at that point?
Sure.
These little so. Is it the willful blindness then of the individual person being willfully blind to these snakes of chaos in their own life, that then as we all get together, that essentially it becomes a snake pit then? And is that the message then, is that what we are seeing as the state, what we are seeing as these issues of resentment, of people wanting to burn it down, is because they're seeing this snake pit that we've created ourselves, and they want to escape the snake so badly, but they don't know that they have to first work on the snakes in their own life.
Maybe even they just want they want the snakes to eat everyone, including them.
Huh.
I mean, the kids who go and shoot up high schools, these mass murderer types, that's what they've decided. It's like, to hell with it. We'll take out as many innocent people as we can, just to spite the creator of the universe, and then we'll blow off our own heads just to show that it doesn't mean anything. And so it's refusal to take responsibility.
Yeah. Taking responsibility for your own life and your own actions, not enforcing your preferences on other people.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key. He knows it. That was his message on this show. I want to talk more about that because we've got a great voluntarist coming up onto the show who has been waiting long enough. But I had so much to say today.
It was great, dude.
So much to say. What I will say is this: I know for sure Jordan Peterson is not going to see this. I know that for absolute sure.
Yeah.
But were he to ever come across it, or if there is someone who has his ear, he's probably, at this point, he's probably beyond, and knowing who he is, he's probably beyond hearing. But the thing is, as someone who knows archetypes, he should know that he is headed for like Oedipal destruction at this point. I hope it doesn't happen. Because I think he's got a lot more to give, and his reputation will be destroyed by this, because the people who are going after him, he's given them nothing but ammunition. So I hope he pulls out for the sake of all of us, because I think he still has a powerful message to give to a lot of people. And if not, then I guess it's up to the rest of us to pick up the slack and take from his message the good things. But otherwise, have to say goodbye to him as a representation of anything even remotely representing individual freedom and a principled stand in that. So let's go ahead and on that note, let's go to break, and then we can come back with Mance Rayder, and I think we're gonna have a blast. He said he could stick around, so let's go ahead. Let's go to break.
The spirit of art. The spirit of technology. The spirit of individuality. Baby Vodka. An ultra-premium spirit conceived by Armani. Handcrafted and distilled in Las Vegas by master distiller George Rotz. Each bottle, a celebration of the individual, custom engraved and hand-signed by the creators. Each element blending in harmony to create a beautiful experience beyond imagination. Baby Vodka, the spirit of Vegas. Created by Armani. Tailored by Christian Rays. Available for purchase exclusively with cryptocurrency at babyvodka.com.
Welcome back to the Vin Armani Show. We are streaming live on YouTube at youtube.com/Vin Armani. Also on Twitter and Periscope at Vin Armani is my handle there. You can check out all of our audio archives at activistpost.com, as we are proud members of their podcast network, and also the Liberty Radio Network, where you can check us out on satellite, terrestrial, as well as online at lrn.fm. I'm not going to do the counter markets thing because don't have a lot of time. I want to get straight to our guest, but go out and get counter markets, countermarkets.com. Go get your first issue for free. So with that, I'd like to get to our guest, who has been so kind as to stick around through my ranting. Our guest today is Mance Rayder. Mance Rayder is the host of the Free Man Beyond the Wall podcast, meme creator, and author of books Freedom Through Memedom, the 31-Day Guide to Waking Up to Liberty, and The Kids Are Not All Right, his new book, a meme-enhanced primer, I should say, on encroaching Marxism in the West. Both of those are available for purchase on Amazon. Mance Rayder, welcome back to the Vin Armani Show.
How are you doing, Vin? How are you doing, Christian?
We are doing fantastic. I had to mute Christian because you're coming in on his same audio. But he's waving. He sees you. So, dude, I'm so glad to have you on. I don't know if you were able to see the conversation that we've been having so far.
I've seen everything so far.
Okay, yeah. Fantastic. So, with this being Meme-orial Day, with you being probably, I would say, the best curator of memes within, which is very important, within the Liberty community, I would say, definitely a thought leader in regards to how we begin to fight these upcoming battles that are being fought. And we're fighting them without guns and bombs. I said we're going to fight them without guns and bombs. We're going to fight them with gifts and brains. And if you want to tell some people about your most recent project, because the Kids Are Not All Right, I think it's very appropriate as we sit on this Memorial Day and people are remembering the toll that certainly the wars of the last century took on people. I think that preventing it is going to be up to the memers of the world. Why don't you give us a little breakdown so that people can understand about this new book, and then we'll get into the broader discussion.
Well, the new book is just basically a take on the campus culture, the you're not allowed to say that culture, the culture that basically says you're hurting my feelings by saying something, and then telling the lie that oh, this could be potential violence. I just this morning I watched a video where a college student was telling Dave Rubin that if he didn't seek to, him being a Jewish person, didn't seek to squash speech that would be anti-Semitic, that he was basically calling for violence against himself. And this whole attitude that's coming off of college campuses, and when I say coming off of college campuses, I mean marching off of college campuses. They're infesting Main Street. They're infesting human resources departments in huge corporations. I've seen these videos. I've had to watch these videos. I've had to sign off that if I said anything that would make somebody uncomfortable, that I would lose my job, no questions asked. It's a culture, and I know private companies can do whatever they want, but these ideas came from somewhere. And these ideas, as far as I'm concerned, they came right off of where all the worst ideas come from, off of college campuses. And this book is my take on, if I was to sit down with somebody and explain to them exactly how this came about, how this is starting to infest our society, this would be, and I used the word primer specifically because it's not anything in depth. It'll just, by the end of it, you'll understand how this thought made its way in, where it came from, and how I believe you fight it.
Okay, so let's dig into that, because I think that you've captured what's perhaps a new literary form. I mean, it's it's got some aspects of I mean, I guess there have like been books of maybe political cartoon analysis before or something like that, but this is current. This is not taking a look at history and trying to derive from the art of the time what people were feeling at that time. This is a much more current way of approaching it. Really, to maybe if you could people who haven't read your books yet, the way that you're approaching this, maybe if you could break down sort of stylistically what your approach is, and why you found it to be particularly effective, because I don't think anyone's approached it quite this way with the use of memes before.
Well, it's pretty simple. With the first book was supposed to be a 31-day guide. You know, you read it one day for 31 days. One page, well, it's really 2 pages. You have a meme, and then you have my commentary on the meme. And at the end of the 31 days, you were supposed to, you know, my hope would be that people would understand what a voluntarist is and that they would want to become one. I used the same thing. I used the same approach in this book, except I broke it up into chapters and subjects. You know, I wanted to talk about where society is right now. I wanted to talk about where this came from and how it's manifested itself into the real world. So I basically did the same thing. I thought about the subject that I wanted to do, a subject that I wanted to speak about on that given day that I write, because I usually only write a page or 2 a day. And I just picked a meme or made a meme that I thought would be helpful in, you know, a visual aid in helping with the commentary that I'm making, and hopefully people will get it. I think sometimes you can look at a meme, and sometimes I look at a meme and it means something different to me, and it means something to me, and it means something completely different to another person. So that's exactly what I did with this book. I just took memes and I did commentaries. But whereas in my first book, basically almost all of that just came out of me, I actually did some research and looked at some history researched some history for this book, and, you know, went back to the foundings of Marxism, and, you know, things that happened in the Soviet Union, you know, catastrophes that have happened all over the place. I talk about Venezuela, and, you know, just it's a warning. It's basically, I want someone to read this, especially young people to read this, and when they finish with it, they come away with not ever being tempted by an ideology that has killed millions, you know, 100 million people. And, you know, using memes, and if I want, you know, the way I look at it now is, if I'm going to reach young people who not a lot I talk to are reading books, sitting down and reading 300-page books. You know, they're not reading, you know, Solzhenitsyn. I'm going to try and communicate with them on their level. And I know that sounds, sometimes it doesn't sound great to me as somebody who can sit down and read 1,000-page books. But, you know, you have to take, if you're going to make a change, you have to look at the reality of the situation, and you have to, you know, tailor your approach to it to who you're talking to. I mean, when I talk to people about voluntarism, when I talk to, you know, a middle class or to upper middle class white person, I usually talk about, you know, monetary issues and banking. If I talk to a 21-year-old African American that's changing oil, I talk to him about the police and how the police act. I mean, and how the police come down upon the Black community, and how basically that's spilling out now into every community. And, you know, it's just basically trying to meet people where they're at, and that's what I'm trying to do with this.
So let's talk about this, meeting people where they're at, because I think it's a very, very important part of the world of, let's say, not just memetic warfare, but I think memetic communication. Something that I've found, and maybe it could be, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Maybe it could be one of the reasons that you sort of are able to attract so many people, particularly to your stream of memes that you put out, and why you've had the influence that you've had, is I really see that there's kind of two sides of people who are either meme creators or meme curators who are in this particular space. The first side that I see is you know, the people who get into a certain space and then they are using the sort of 4chan vocabulary in terms of memes, things that are in many ways exclusive, that exclude those individuals who don't understand either the vernacular or the particular meaning of certain memes. We saw how that can manifest in weird ways with the whole Pepe thing during the elections, certainly. But, there are some people who have, if you understand the vocabulary, their memes are hilarious. But if you don't, it's almost like they're speaking in a completely other language. You, on the other hand, while I know that you will sometimes include some of those obscure memes, I found that the real power that you bring to the table is that, you tend to bring things that are really easy to understand, and that are the vocabulary you use is a popular vernacular, one that that is accessible to pretty much everybody. What do you think in terms of the? Well, first, what do you think about that distinction, and do you think that the people who what do you think the motivation is for the individuals who choose to do that more exclusive side? And then for you, how do you decide when something is what's your metric for deciding when the vocabulary is sufficiently sort of broad-minded that you could bring in the largest crowd? I guess those two things, if you want to comment on those.
Well, the former, when somebody's making memes like that, I mean, it's just basically a form of collectivism. They're doing it for a certain group, and they're doing it to entertain a certain group. I don't know specifically that, a lot of the meme warfare that went on from that 4chan side before the election. I mean, I doubt the people who were the target of it could even get some of it. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they even understood what it was. I mean, look, I mean, you had a friggin' presidential candidate mentioning Pepe the Frog. I mean, it's mind-boggling to think what that Hillary Clinton was talking about memes. I mean, and she brought the warfare down on herself when it came to that. But the memes that I want to share, I mean, and I put my share of obscure memes out there, especially stuff that will have to do with society more than politics. But my political memes, I want them to be as simple as possible. I want them to be borderline straw men. Because
expand on that. Expand on what you mean by that, because I don't quite understand what you mean, but it seems interesting. It's on the tip of my brain here.
Well, a straw man, if you understand what a straw man is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. A straw man is supposed to be, you're having an argument with somebody, you're losing, you bring up something that's completely irrelevant to the conversation. Mm-hmm. Okay. When it comes to memes and people start accusing you of being a straw man, my definition of a straw man meme is one that just takes it all the way. It takes it as far as it can go without it becoming utterly ridiculous.
Got it.
I can't even think of an example right now, but something that someone's going to look at and they're going to go, someone who's already made their mind up that they're going to hate whatever you put out there. It's just going to be like, ugh, this is ridiculous. But somebody who's on the fence, and those people are out there, and I talk about them in my book. And somebody just mentioned yesterday, because I talked about, a lot of people ask when you're on social media and you're arguing, why even bother? And I wrote, because of the lurker. Yes. Because I think I'm a big believer in the Pareto principle, 80-20, and I believe that 80% of the people who are on social media are not even participating, and they're just looking.
I agree 100%. 100%.
So you have to, the person who's looking, and I opened up my direct messages on Twitter so that anybody could direct message me, and it goes into a special box and I approve it or not. But ever since I did that and I started looking, I'm seeing a lot of people who are contacting me and go, I would never post, but I look at your memes and they make me think. It made me change my mind about this. I saw you having a conversation. I have people sending me people who would never post a meme themselves, but they'll make a meme and they'll send it to me, send me articles. And I think it's very important for the people who are just being onlookers. But as far as the meme warfare goes, or just basically, it's just communication. I mean, the greatest meme of all time was Martin Luther, the 95 Theses. That's going right. Going on the door. That's a meme that basically changed Western history, and it opened up a lot. I mean, people started learning to read because of that. The Bible is going to be printed in English, and it's just absolutely amazing. But the memes the best meme that you can put out there is one that really hits people hard, but there has to be a lot of truth in it. It has to be loaded with truth, because if it's not loaded with truth, and every once in a while I'll just throw one out there that I know I don't agree with, just to see how people are going to react to it, just to see if people are going to get it. I put one out there today that it was the cast of Tropic Thunder in their uniforms.
Okay.
And it said on it, I know that only 2% of the people who see this will like it and retweet it in praise of our Vietnam veterans. And it's a perfect Memorial Day. It's a perfect Memorial Day meme. And they it was like 3 or 4 people were just like, that's the cast of Tropic Thunder, right? And
they didn't get it.
Yeah, you just have to, you have to have fun sometimes too. If you're serious all the time, it's not going to. You got to break it up sometimes. But sometimes when I try to be serious, that's when I get people who are like, I'm gonna unfollow you because that was just cruel, or whatever. People, I can't help what people like.
So let's talk about truth, because I opened the show with the Aeschylus quote, and it's appropriate for Memorial Day. In war, truth is the first casualty. And as you say, the most important thing, or the most important weapon. So this is a very interesting sort of notion, and I've been trying to wrap my head around this, and I wanted to speak with you about it, particularly because your book is dealing with Marxism. The story that we had before the break about Jordan Peterson, the little weird-ass post that he's doing in the New York Times, which is the most unflattering. I don't know why he had to know that they were going to use the most unflattering pictures of him that they possibly could find. He's standing in front of the Soviet propaganda, huge Soviet propaganda pieces in his house that he, I guess, has been collecting for several decades now, which are memes, used against, that the Soviets use primarily against their own population. And that all authoritarians use against their own population. I wonder, truth is powerful clearly in that situation, and yet there's no objective truth. I don't know whether you agree with that or not, but certainly what people find truthful changes over time. It changes across cultures. What truths we hold to be self-evident, if you will. We're trying to, with memetic warfare, what you're trying to do is you're trying to change the truth inside someone. So change their, or are you? And maybe this is what I've been trying to wrap my head around and trying to grapple with. Do you think, and this is in your opinion here, and I don't know what to think about this yet. Do you think that it is that there is really no truth, and that with memes we can manipulate truth, that if we control the memetic space completely, that whatever we say becomes true? I think that might be the Soviet idea, that might be the Marxist idea, that might be the authoritarian idea. Or do you believe that really there is a truth, and that the closer we can get to that truth, and maybe it's through memes, that's how you help to awaken people and that it's somewhere inside of people, which I guess would be the more Jungian idea. Which one of those realities have you found to be more true as you've moved forward in this whole space of memetic communication?
I I believe that most people believe in truth. They believe in a truth. They believe in many truths. So if they believe in many truths, obviously I'm not going to. I don't assume that I'm working with a blank slate. I assume that there's something molded there that's going to have to be remolded. That's going to have to be reshaped. I think what I do is I'm trying to figure out the difference between truth and logic right now, because I want to use logic more than anything else. And I know that's almost a logic's becoming a dirty word.
Why do you think? Why do you find logic to be valuable? I think most people would, on face value, think that it would be emotion that was truly the more powerful thing with memes. But I have heard a lot of people who are particularly good at creating memes say that no, actually, logic is far more powerful than emotions in this space.
Probably because I'm logical. Yeah. I mean, everything is going to be a reflection of yourself. So it's going to be a reflection of your beliefs. So yeah, I fight with logic. I guess emotions sometimes too. I mean, I do try to get people angry with certain memes, especially anti-war memes. I want to, I do not care when I put an anti-war meme out there. I put one out this morning and it was a bunch of coffins, flag draped coffins. And it said, not one of these people died for your freedoms. And it really, I mean, the argument, how can the argument be made that anyone in, say, the last 150 years, any soldier has died for American freedom? I mean, World War I was useless. World War II didn't have to get involved in it. Maybe in the Japanese, maybe in the Pacific theater, but certainly not in the European. Vietnam, Korea, all of these things. Someone tried to make the argument of the Civil War, the war between the states, and even still, that one could have been avoided. I mean, that's a meme that I look at it and I believe that there's truth in it. I believe that there's logic in it, but I also put it out there because I knew it was going to be emotional. And I want to see how people are going to react to that. And especially if someone reacts to it negatively and harshly, is harshly fighting against it, then you can take it into a certain direction that, hopefully people that are onlooking who would be on the fence, that you could bring them around and you can explain exactly why the truth that is presented, the logic that's presented in the meme.
I want to talk about, since it is Memorial Day, and I know that you are an anti-war individual, as am I.
I'm not a pacifist.
Right. Neither am I. Neither am I. But what I find interesting, especially in this vein, is that when I first started my anti-war activism was basically, it's pretty much the day that the bombs started dropping in Iraq. And I was in LA, went out to the very, very first march of that war that was taking place at the Federal Building. And then from there on was heavily involved on a lot of different sides, including ended up being the person who ended up streaming a lot of those things and doing live broadcasts to KPFK and 90.7. Now, interestingly enough, because of that and through that experience, I joined the Green Party. At one point, I was the director of fundraising for the Los Angeles County Greens. I was heavily involved at Pacifica Radio, which is notoriously left-leaning, although there are some righteous thinkers there, like Scott Horton. But it's so interesting that here we are, come 15, 16 years later, and there is no anti-war left. And with Trump in office, if something, it's already bad, but if something were to break off, I don't think that there's going to be much of an anti-war right. Really, the only anti-war stance I see anymore, the only truth even coming out about what's going on that's not being reported in the mainstream media, is coming from certainly libertarians, I would say.
Glenn Greenwald, Jeremy Scahill, those
or
guys,
just principled journalists, right? So
yeah,
outside of, I'm saying culturally, outside of the principled
right.
individual journalists, of course.
Oh yeah, people don't give a shit anymore. I mean, it's just absolutely amazing how people just don't care about the wars anymore.
And so maybe that's, I think what's difficult for me is communicating to people the fact that the wars never stopped. And the fact that just because you're not seeing bombs dropping on CNN in prime time as theater, doesn't mean, one, that bombs aren't dropping, or two, that the bombs that are dropping are any less powerful than the ones that you might see on TV. How do we start to, as people who are principled anti-war, as I've moved, and now I'm not right or left, but I'm a libertarian. I'm certainly, I think at that time I might have even considered myself a socialist, but because I was anti-war. How do we start communicating to people that this is an aspect of the state that hasn't stopped? It doesn't matter who's in office. I had to tell somebody the other day, it's like, that they'll be like, oh, Obama did that. And it's like, dude, your psychopath is no worse. You really think that all the secret dronings that Obama did, that Trump stopped when he got in? You really think that that's not going on? How do we start communicating that to people, memetically or otherwise?
Well, I think when you talk about war to the right, you really anyone who's on the right, it's probably smart to bring up the cost of it. I'm not talking about the human cost of it. I'm talking about the financial cost of it. Because most conservatives even will say this, even though they don't believe it, that they believe that they're fiscally conservative, and they believe in smaller government, even though that they support and champion the largest the military and law enforcement, and basically the largest socialist policies that we have in the country that cost the most. And when you talk to the left, I mean, the only thing I can ever talk, it should always be from a moral standpoint. And that's historically where it came from with people on the left, is just how wrong it is about how many lives are being destroyed. The problem is, right now the left cares more about Nazis and virtue signaling and misgendering and being triggered and microaggressions. I mean, I don't know. I mean, these college professors, and I talk about this in my book, have done such a great job of teaching these kids about all these things and how they need to be worried about them and how they're number one on the list, where it would be, it's almost like they're purposely not talking about war. Because it's the easiest thing to get it's the easiest thing to get a young person involved in, that war is wrong, that war is evil, that war rarely if ever solves anything, and all the lives that are being destroyed. And that's the only way that I can think to come at the left. But they're on this Trump, they're so, and I think they're pissed off. I think the thing they hate the most about Trump is they had 8 years of the cool dad, the dad that they like, the dad that you could invite your friends over and he would joke with them and everything and might even sneak them a beer. Where now, if you invited him over to this dad might, start passing gas and, making offhand jokes, and maybe even, maybe even saying something, kind of rude to your, to your best friend who, is the hottest girl in the high school or something like that. I mean, that's literally how these leftists act. And they make no sense. Trump, Trump is supported by Nazis. Trump is literally Hitler. But everybody must give up their guns because yeah, obviously that's one of their talking points. So it's like they want they see Hitler in office and they want everybody to give up their guns. I mean, these people are they at this point in history they're way more irrational than the right. Even though I think the right is irrational because they say they're for smaller government and they promote and think that the largest government programs are the most important. So I mean I don't know. It's rough talking to either one of them, which is a lot of the time I believe that you really need to come to this on your own. There's something puts you over the top. For me, it was Ron Paul talking about the wars, and I was immediately anti-war as soon as I heard him talk. But something to put them over the top, and it might just be a meme. So who the hell knows? Just I keep doing what I'm doing, hoping that I can make a little change. People ask me, anyone who asks me to go on a podcast or anything, I will go, and the only reason I don't say no to anyone is because somebody might hear me who turns out to be the next Ron Paul, Dave Smith, Vin Armani, somebody who will go out there and bring people information that they otherwise wouldn't hear somewhere else. I mean, it's really just like almost you're winning one convert at a time.
I love it. I mean, I want to talk to you a little bit about this, and it's a meme itself, but the meme of the left can't meme. And I want to see if we can deconstruct this a little bit, because I think it's important, because one, it's true. It seems to be that the statist left can't meme. Well, it seems like something like this, that the amount of time, money, and effort that they have to spend to get an idea into the minds of the masses is so much more. Like, their return on investment is so low. You look at the thing with the guns, right? How much time, effort, money, how much staff had to be put into that. When how much time, money, how much money was put into Pepe, for crying out loud,
MS Paint. That was done in MS Paint.
That's what I'm saying, and so I'm wondering, because I think that there's something there, because it feels like it's a little bit like meme Moneyball, right? That as we, I wonder though if you think that it's because you said that the key is truth, and it's pulling out the truth. Do you think that it's the subject matter and the position that gives those who are on the libertarian voluntarist side such power when they meme, and such ease at doing it? Or do you think that it is more a method, that it's a methodological thing that somehow has been captured by libertarians, by the individualist counterculture, and the outsiders, that the mainstream has a... Basically what I'm saying is, do you think that they will ever be a memetic threat? Or do you think that it's just the positions that they hold prevent them from being able to meme properly?
I mean, I talked about this in my book. I actually put a section at the end called "The Left Can't Meme and Analysis," and I went over some things, and one of them was they have no sense of humor. There's and which is hilarious, because most of my favorite comedians, stand-up comedians, stuff like that, or you would call them leftists. They would be liberals, and I just, because they make me laugh, I just look past it. I don't, I'm not gonna sacrifice entertainment and quality time when I can turn my brain off for an hour, because everyone needs to do that. But also, they're friggin' violent and angry people. They are. I mean, libertarians are not violent and angry. We're angry about a lot of things, but we're not going to rallies and getting in people's faces and threatening them. It just doesn't. We don't have time for that. Most of us are just working too hard. Most of us just don't have the time for it. And also, historically, when you look at the left, there were some great minds. I mean, there were people who, they may have been, their thought processing may be wrong, but they had high IQs and they were rather intelligent people. And I just don't see the memes that I see coming from the left. There's no, it's like the labor theory of value. You have to use the labor theory of value and go, these memes have to be worth, if you use the labor theory of value, these memes would be worth 10 or 20 times what mine is, because they're putting in, I mean, some of these memes have so many words in them that you need a magnifying glass. and that's
those, yeah.
And that's another thing is, if you have a message that's powerful and that there's some logic behind and there's some truth behind, you can you can do it in a very concise way. I mean, if there's more than 6 lines, 3 lines on the top, 3 lines on the bottom, even that much, sometimes you're doing too much, and you probably don't understand what you're trying to get across.
Right.
Because if you understood what, I mean, so many of these kids are talking about socialism and communism and how great it would be, and Marxism and yada yada, and they don't really understand it. Because when they try to explain it, I can explain the benefits of capitalism in 2 sentences, maybe 1. But I mean, you can't. Anyone who tries to sit there and make excuses for socialism, communism, any of those, any of the hard authoritarian frameworks, you can't do that in 2 sentences, and you have to make all sorts of rationalizations. You have to, you're basically trying to convince somebody. You're trying to convince somebody of something that inherently they will know that there's something really screwy with, but they're working too hard, basically.
I want to get to a little bit of crypto before we go. Of course, how can I not? And I wanted to talk about crypto and memes. There's been a lot of talk in the last couple of weeks of people starting to try to figure out or recognizing something that has become clear to me, and I've been trying to communicate about as well, that it's time that we start keeping talented people within our ecosystem by making sure that they get paid. And since the technology itself is money, it seems like a very, very easy and not a lot of friction to make that happen. I wonder, though, if as we move into the time of memetic warfare, which is happening not just between the traditional enemies of the central banks and crypto, or fiat and crypto, the mainstream and crypto, but between blockchains themselves, and knowing the value that we do of memetic warfare and of talented meme creators and curators as well. I wonder, I'd like to get your opinion on whether a memer would lose value if they were, let's say, professionally attached to a particular blockchain, and of course there's no way to know this, but in your opinion, is it important that for the power of the memes that you are not a professional per se, and that if you get paid off your books, off your speaking appearances, off whatever it is, as opposed to being directly paid for memes? Or do you think that there's actually potentially a profession there where talent can be leveraged in exchange for money?
Memes for money? I don't think so, because memes, as soon as you create a meme, it's not yours anymore. You put it out there. When I first started making memes, and you possibly could see some going around, that I would put like a watermark on, and it would just be my my Twitter address, my Twitter handle, my @ and I just got to the point where I was like, 1, I'm lazy, I don't want to do that was just a pain in the butt to do. Two, I've just come to understand that, you know, once a meme goes out there, it's for everyone. You know, and anyone can use it. I mean, if I make a meme and someone else says that they made it, I mean, you're a dick, but, you know, I don't think you should be arrested, you know, right. Thrown in a cage or something like that. But as far as making money, I mean, I guess a couple people have accused me of, and these aren't people who are making, they've never read my book. They don't really know anything about me. It's just, you know, just to throw shade my way, is that, oh, your books are, you know, half your book is memes. And I'm like, you really need to read the other half, because the other half, you're going to see exactly how much work and how much thought I put into it. And if you don't like it, well, you don't like it. But I don't think anyone can look at these books and say that it took me 5 minutes to do it. You know, I just threw some memes together and that was it. No, I put a lot of hard work into these, and, you know, they're structured, you know, especially my first book was structured in a very certain way. And it's very hard to structure, to set something up over 31 days chronologically and say, I want this thought here because this thought leads into this thought and this thought leads into this thought. So I guess people could accuse me of making money off of memes when I sell a book. But as far as, I mean, if a blockchain wanted to hire, I mean, look at Wendy's. Wendy's hired someone to run their Twitter account who's just a monster. I mean, that person is a friggin' savage, whoever's running that. And I hope it's more than one person, because if it's just one person, that person has to be making six figures, right? Because they're just a beast, and, you know, and that person makes memes and puts them on friggin' Wendy's Twitter, the Wendy's Twitter account. But I mean, if I would think with what I do, with what I want, with what I want my purposes to be, what my purpose is in doing these memes, I can't just be, you know, if say, you know, a cryptocurrency, something I own, say Verge or something, XVG or something like that, said, you know, we want you to make memes for us, and, you know, we'll pay you in cryptocurrency. It's now I'm basically going from being an advocate for all forms of freedom, you know, talking about the state, talking about this, talking about that, and talking about things that I want to talk about, like, you know, that have to be talked about, like police abuse, foreign policy. And now I'm just stuck in one. Personally, I couldn't do it because I'd just be stuck in one sphere, where if there's somebody who's really good at making memes, but is like really, you know, just hot on one crypto, on one blockchain, you know, go for it. But I mean, I can't, I understand the power of crypto, and you've helped me a lot in understanding that, and where it can take us, and the freedom that can be won by understanding exactly how to use it. But there's other things that I need to talk about, and I really would feel like if I started getting pigeonholed into one thing, that I was really cheating, because really cheating anybody that I could reach, because I have a lot to say on a lot of other subjects.
I completely respect that. I think that we're going to have to see how this thing shapes out, because there certainly is a space there, and I mean there's the economic incentive. I think that's probably a pretty good place to end it off. Of course, I want people to go and check out your two books. Of course, your first one, Freedom Through Memedom, The 31-Day Guide to Waking Up to Liberty, and the new book, The Kids Are Not All Right, a meme-enhanced primer on encroaching Marxism in the West. Both of those are available for Amazon. If people want to check out your podcast, your Twitter, etc., where should we send them to?
The podcast is at, I switched podcast hosts. I went over to Libsyn. So it's Libsyn, if you go to my website, though, which is freemanbeyondthewall.com, and you go to the podcast section, there's a link to I put a link to Libsyn, and all of my episodes are on there, 113 now. And also today I just started to put up a page and install WooCommerce and install
Nice.
the coin payments
Nice.
section.
Nice.
And I'm setting up a page on my website where you are going to be able to buy my books using crypto.
I will be linking to that heavily. I will definitely share that, and I know our audience will be. You will have a flood of people buying because they love to buy books with crypto. I will tell you from firsthand experience.
Well, I'm because this is the first time I'm doing it. I like literally was going out of my skull this morning, getting everything installed and then getting everything going on coin payments. So it should be within. I should be able to have it up within a couple days.
Awesome.
But
if you need any help,
that'll be.
Let me know if you need any help, dude. I've done a few of them, so.
I probably will ask you because
Okay, cool.
I was like I got to a point today where I'm just like I got to stop or else I'm going to throw this thing across the room. But it's going to be freemanbeyondthewall.store.
Love it.
freemanbeyondthewall.com/store. And yeah, man, I look forward to doing that. There'll be a bunch of different currencies that I'll accept for that. And if you want to use fiat, Amazon's a place. But and check me out on Twitter. Drop me a DM. If I don't follow you, it may take me a couple days to get to your DM because I don't really, I'm busy doing a lot of shit. But I will get back to you and just tell me. I like criticisms too. I like criticism as long as it's constructive. If you're just gonna tell me how much of a fucking asshole I am, I'm probably gonna screenshot it and put it on Twitter.
Awesome.
And I'm not gonna hide your name. I'm not gonna hide your address. So there could be 12,000 people going after you. All right. So.
Well, thank you so much, dude, for being on. Always a pleasure, and I'm sure I'll be catching up with you. And of course, if you need any help, anything I can do to make merchant adoption for this thing happen, I am at your service. So, Mance Rayder, always a wonderful guest. Thank you so much for being on the show, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks a lot, man. You take care now.
See ya. So, Christian, hold on, dude, because I actually have your audio off right now. And what I need to do is actually turn your audio back on. So, give me 1 second. Yeah, it's this new set. Say something, Christian. Nope. Nope. Stop talking. Hold on. I'll get it. Dude, we're getting the thing that I love about this is we are getting so close. Hold on. Line 2. Now, how about now? Can you say something?
Hello.
Oh, look
Can you hear me?
there he is.
All right.
Excellent, dude. Excellent. So,
Cool.
Always a pleasure having Mance Rayder on the show. He's awesome. We've gone over, but I'm glad that he stuck around, dude. So thank you so much. I think we're starting to get this a little more. We're being a little more technically competent, right? We're getting there. Thank you so much for sticking around. You as well. Let me say goodbye to the people, and we'll get on out of here. So, here we go. Go for it, Christian.
There we go.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thanks to my guest, Mance Rayder, for coming on. Please go and check out his books on Amazon. Or, actually, no, wait until his site is ready to accept with crypto and get the book that way. Absolutely the best. I have a feeling you might actually even get it signed, and that would be even better. Guys, thank you for being on. Thank you, Christian. And, man, I cannot wait to see what this next week brings. You can listen to the audio archives of our show on iTunes and Stitcher. You can also go to activistpost.com. We are proud members of the Activist Post Podcast Network. And during this week, you can listen to us on terrestrial satellite as well as online on the Liberty Radio Network at lrn.fm. So we will see you again next week, Monday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Until then, stay free.